Afternoon test? Okay. Okay. So we're going to continue with the next series of questioning.
Recording in progress.
Good afternoon. So these questions deal with education. So the first question is for Mr. Johnson. A significant number of positions that affect the Department of Education's ability to provide transitional services to students with disabilities have, okay, that was already, yeah. Move on to the next question, sorry. Many students with disabilities have difficulties obtaining employment under a school-to-work program. Is it realistic to include a requirement under the EDC program to employ qualified persons with disabilities? What other options would you consider?
Thank you very much, and I don't like to be repetitive, but again, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, especially any agency, federal or local government that's getting federally funded, cannot, I repeat, cannot discriminate against a person based on their disability and not give them a fair employment opportunity. And a lot of times when a person runs into these problems, if they feel that they're discriminated, some folks walk away. I urge them not to walk away, to challenge the system, challenge those individuals. A lot of times we sometimes give up and say, well, because of my disability, they don't want to give me that opportunity. But folks that are disabled can work, and it's proven. It's able to prove that to you and many others that are here, that there are jobs that they can do. They just have to be trained up in order to do these jobs. So many times we might need to start looking at ways to train them up more, have them prepare for the workforce that are out there. The technology is there. And once the technology is there, that person is willing, we definitely have to find ways to make sure we train them up and prepare them for the workforce that is at hand here. They definitely look forward in assisting and always being available to work with them. Again, number 4, Franklin Johnson on the ballot.
Okay, I pose that question to Mr. Joseph as well. Would you like me to repeat it? Okay. Many students with disabilities have difficulties obtaining employment under the school-to-work program. Is it realistic to include a requirement under the EDC program to employ qualified persons with disabilities? What other options would you consider?
Clifford Joseph, number 18 on the ballot. As far as consideration, again, I would first go along the lines of training up individuals to make sure that when they do go out for these jobs, that they're ready to function in the job. Also, I will encourage individuals that are disabled to go and make your complaints, because it is very important to make complaints. Go and file, you go to the federal court and make your complaints, because nothing around here moves unless you force it to move it. It stays where it's at until we push. You just don't get anything just because you want, oh, well, I'm disabled and they ain't hiring. Make the complaints that you need to make so we could force and put you where you need to be. I feel, like I just told this young man, I'm impressed every time I see him. Because I know him from being able to now see him disabled. I see he's still a happy camper, regardless of what. That's important. I just feel that, again, once we train individuals up and communicate with the rest of the community, letting them know that these people are able, these individuals are able to work, I think we'll do all right. Clifford Joseph, number 18 and above.
Thank you for the question. Another way perhaps is through, because your question is in addition to the EDC requirement, what other ways, correct? Perhaps through apprenticeship programs where we specifically create programs where incentives so that there is again that I think we sometimes overlook, that there is a stereotype or the bias that somehow they're not going to receive the same quality from people with disabilities. Sometimes they exceed the quality they receive from the other employees. So I think with apprenticeship programs, it gives both the employer and the employee, in this case, well, the apprentice, the opportunity, first of all, to experience how it is to work with someone with a disability. It gives the person with the disability the opportunity to find out whether or not this particular position works for them. Because sometimes we make an assumption that someone goes to work, from school to work in a particular area that it naturally is a fit. Sometimes it's not a fit. In addition to that, one of the areas that I want to do more study on and research on is whether or not people with disabilities, including students and adults, whether or not they're receiving the wage that they're entitled to. Because a lot of times they're paid sub-minimum wages, and that's an issue that we have to look at in the Virgin Islands and determine whether or not that is an issue. Mary James on the plane, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. O'Brien, and Honorable Francis Jr., number 8 on the ballot. And just kind of shifting gear a little bit in terms of some of the things that I believe outside of EDC, I think that perhaps we need to look at the division of personnel as well as the Department of Labor on the government side of the house, and similarly, some type of advocacy on the opposite side of the house to ensure that there's someone there advocating for these individuals to be seeking employment. They'll be there to navigate the employment process by ensuring that all the T's are dotted, I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and be able to get them to that level. I think too in government that we need to be able to earmark, and I've had this discussion even with the police department, where I believe that there was some opportunity for individuals to come and monitor these surveillance cameras, for example. I believe that we could hire up some disabled individual that, because a lot of times that's taken right out, because a person is disabled doesn't mean that they're totally limited. There are things that they could do to help to be independent and be able to work for themselves, and they want to do that. They want to be able to provide for themselves. So I believe that having someone to be able to navigate that whole employment process, because even as a regular citizens, there's some difficulty at times being able to navigate the employment process. So I think having someone to be able to support them and assist them and being able to go through what's required for these employment, I think that that'll be an advantage. And perhaps we could fund those positions from the legislative level through Department of Labor, personnel, as well as through some advocacy group to be able to allow that to occur. Honorable Francis, number 8.
Nelly O'Reilly, writing candidate. So it turns out that individuals with diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, chronic depression, those individuals may apply for disability and are oftentimes also considered individuals with disabilities. So I want to make sure that we understand that disability is more than just a physical impairment. So I want to make that clear. Then also, I agree that we should identify some of the monies that EDC companies are required to pay into the government. I know some EDC companies are required to contribute to education, to schools and other areas. And perhaps just the senators sitting now may want to revisit that and set aside a percentage of that for training and to fund apprenticeship programs like Senator James pointed out, because an apprenticeship bill was already passed a few years ago. But it's important for us to train and provide incentives to businesses to open up positions for individuals with disability, because particularly I want to talk about young people. Students are allowed to remain in school until age 21 if they have a special need. Therefore, we might want to consider in the last 2 years of their schools integrating them into the workplace, right? For example, as a business owner, I would love to be able to give an opportunity to individuals with disabilities to work in our business. And we do this currently by accommodating employees who have depression and have other issues. We bring services to the company to allow them to learn how to work with each other. We have someone who has Asperger's, but that person is a phenomenal employee. I believe integration leads to compassion. So I would support EDC funding utilized for that purpose. I'm Nelly, and I am a writing candidate.
Keyword Frederick, number 7 on the ballot. Very good conversation, good question. As it relates to school to work programs, as much as we can train individuals for these employment opportunities, excellent. Through apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship programs, that's awesome. Where I want to add some value to this discussion is when it comes to entrepreneurship. Start your own businesses. When I worked for the State Department of Audits, every living business in that building, which was a huge building, was owned and operated by a person with disability. So they ran their own business, had their own employees, and made their own money without any subsidy or anything from the government other than an opportunity to rent the space. We have not touched that opportunity yet in the virtual months, and we really need to. Stop this thing about only employees. People can do more than be employees. I want them to become business owners. I want them to be self-sufficient. I want everyone, not just disabled people, everyone to grow our business community. That's where we lack the most resources. We lost a lot of businesses because of the storms in 2017. And as a result, in order for us to rebuild our economy, we're going to have a lot more businesses. And this is an opportunity for us to get people to go from school into their own businesses, not just employment. So let's look at this issue a little differently. I hope I add value with this. I got the experience to do so. I was a banker for 25 years, so I know what it takes to get them started. And let's see if we can work on that. Okay, Keyword Frederick, number 7 on the ballot.
I appreciate that thought. I believe that you are right on target with that. At Sonia's, we have conducted 2 trainings where we certify young people in metal fabrication. And we do this because we want individuals to be able to go out there and start their own business, not necessarily work for Sonia's or Pujan Gold. However, we need to work with SBDC because to start a business, you have to have a business plan. And if a person without a disability has challenges getting a business plan, then we're going to have to provide services for individuals to get the assistance necessary for that. SBDC claims that they can help you with it. But we need to get more coaches out there willing to sit down and help people create business plans. And artificial intelligence does that.
Thank you. I love this conversation because, again, recognizing the issue of business plan, entrepreneurship, I provided funding to be able to support these type of endeavors through a Catalyst Fund, which provide gap financing for individuals that have ideas. Such as they mentioned here, we provided $5 million, and recently we passed legislation that allowed for $20 million out of the Epstein Fund, again, to go towards entrepreneurship and gap financing in a Catalyst Fund. So it's critical that you do have the entrepreneurship idea. Certainly we want a business plan to be prepared, and we're going to provide you with the funding to make it happen. We have a well-laid team.
Okay, so I love this great legislations are formed. In my experience, I was an advisory board member for the SBDC for over 3 years, so I'm very familiar with the organization. When I was a banker, the business plans I read came from the SBDC. So I know for a fact it works. The SBDC has its challenges, but I'm telling you, the resources are in place for us to start moving people into entrepreneurship. Doesn't matter what your backgrounds are. So get them started, start thinking as to being an owner versus a worker, and you'll see that will manifest into more businesses and opportunity. Thank you very much, Your Frederick.
I was along the lines of being a business owner. I actually was going to say, my colleague here sitting with me said that Francis, this is one time, when I was out of the Senate, I worked with him on the Catalyst Fund. In the Senate, of course, we worked together on a number of meaningful legislation. But years ago, the Syncroid Foundation for Community Development did small loans to individuals, and I think those are some of the ways that we need to, again, revitalize in our community, because small business owners a lot of times have a need for people, human people with disabilities that they can work close with. So I think I agree that we should also consider and not really restrict ourselves to just school to work. Thank you. Maurice James on the 20.
Great, thank you. I love the engagement. The next question, and I'll start with Nellie O'Reilly. Parents of children with disabilities have a number of concerns regarding transitional services. Are you aware of the concerns and how you can resolve them, or how they can be resolved?
So I'd like to ask you to clarify transitional services. Are we talking transitional services from one grade to the next, or from school to work?
From school to work.
I think we touched on some of that earlier. I think parents of students with disabilities or special needs have a host of challenges that they deal with, even with their students in the classroom. And so I think that the challenge of transitioning a student from school to work can be addressed, as I said earlier, by using the last 2 years of their education as a transition piece. Meaning, have them go into the workplace, whether it's a government agency. In fact, the legislature has a summer employment program. I would recommend that we set aside 30% of whatever those positions are, and have them be available to those students who are transitioning out, whether it's the 11th grade or the 12th grade. I also believe that the University of the Virgin Islands, since we do not have a community college, needs to be a little more boots on the ground rather than the ivory tower kind of institution. Because we can transition students that are students with special needs from their senior year into a community college setting or a university setting that can also provide them services that are modified. I agree with what everyone here has said, which is a person with a disability is not totally identified as a person with a disability who is not able to contribute to his or her community. The fact that you might not be able to see doesn't mean that you can use a computer to write. And so maybe the University of the Virgin Islands should start teaching our individuals with disability how to develop a business plan using AI. Technology assisted resources should be made available for our young students who are transitioning out of high school, and that should include a college education.
Keep the energy in this. Transitional services are essential for people with disability, just for any students that's getting ready to come into the workforce. I know when they came to us at the bank, we used to have a bank training program. Everyone had to go through that training program back in the days. Now, we don't do that anymore. No one wants to invest in that kind of outflow anymore when employees can just quit whenever they want to, and then all that investment goes down the drain. So it's best if government would work more towards the training end, because businesses just want you to come in, know your job, we'll train you specifically on what we need, and let's start making money. So the government needs to definitely work more on the general training and preparedness for these students, so that when they come out to us for jobs, we can actually use them to become an asset for our companies. Because that's what we need. We need people, boots on the ground, ready to go. Not people that I'm going to spend another 12 months trying to train to get up, ready to go to make me money. And that would be a back investment for me. So I, hopefully with my ascent into the Senate, I can bring that perspective into the body so we can look more holistically how to prepare our students, not just for jobs, but for entrepreneurship. And we can do wraparound services. How do you deal with the aspect of finances, which people need? You need financing to get into business. As Senator Francis said, there's some resources available for that. Let's utilize that, maximize that opportunity, and get these people off and running. That will help all of us. Trust me. In a business environment, although some of us are apprehensive about that, it works better for all of us. Hubert Frederick, number 7 on the ballot.
Senator Francis.
Thank you very much for the question, Noble Francis, number 8 on the ballot. One of the takeaways from today's discussion for me, if nothing else, is that we have to have these conversations more frequently. I think once a year during, or once every 2 years is insufficient in order for us to have these discussions. There's so much things going around in my head as we're having these discussions about how do we really support our community as it pertains to disability. And, I had the experience recently where I have an employee at the legislature that had a disabled student graduate from school, and then nothing happens. There must be some level of synergy that occurs the day after graduation, and this needs to be started perhaps with the guidance counselors, other individuals within the schools, that there is a transition plan for that student as they go along, and that should involve, of course, Department of Labor, Division of Personnel, also that there will be some transition or continuing education. University of the Virgin Islands, there should be something done to ensure that there is some continuance of education, training, or at least apprenticeship or employment that occurs during that phase. So I believe that, and why I say that we need to be able to have this discussion is that perhaps, unfortunately, we have to at times legislate everything. And we don't have any problem doing that. We love to legislate. Sometimes we overlap legislate, so we don't really want to do that. But, I think that the conversation that's being had today has really got my juices flowing. I think it's important that we continue to have these conversations. But a transitional plan just seems to be basic. That should be occurring with our students. And it's not occurring, and we need to fix that. Noble Francis, number 8.
Thank you for the question. The child, the student, the school student who's transitioning from school can be transitioning, for example, to the University of the Virgin Islands, which, based on the limited research I've done, the university does in fact have disability policy. But I was thinking along the lines of life skills, because once you graduate from high school, really for all students, but especially for students with disabilities, what does the parent do? How is the parent assisted in making sure that now the child, the student, is in fact going to be independent of them, whether it's going into, as we discussed earlier, the workplace, because that's possible, going to the University of the Virgin Islands or anywhere else, going into the military, because that's possible nowadays too, because as we know when we talk about people with disabilities, we have a tendency to, and that's why I speak about the unconscious bias, that somehow they need more help than some of us. And sometimes some of us need more help. Quite frankly, I wouldn't really help out there. Because we all need help transitioning from school to life skills. What are we providing to those people? In addition to people with disabilities. And again, 10 seconds? Wow. Even if I wanted my child to live in a dorm at a university, how do I know that in fact those services are being provided to that student? Thank you, both on Attorney and exchange.
Mr. Joseph?
Clifford A. Joseph, number 18 on the ballot. Transition. If we all stop for a minute and think, again, the parents and maybe the faculties too need to ask this question to the student, like, what would you like to do after you finish school? Because that's important. Just like able children, when I go to a class or a high school, I ask them the same thing, you know what you plan for the future for yourself? I feel that the disabled child should be asked the same question, because then the preparation don't need to be from 10th grade, maybe the preparation need to be from 9th grade. Just like if you were taking up, when I went to school, they were taking up a trade class. They do like a 3-year swing, so by the time you're ready to finish, you at least have an understanding of how this trade works. Then we could extend into a job field and the job training can, because with your mind already set, disabled or not, on where you want to be, because that's important. If a young person already have a plan, well, if I'm disabled, I already know what's my limitations to a point, so I will already make up my mind what I think I could be able to do, whatever subject matter it is. So if we're doing it from a 3-year base, so by the time we get to 12th grade, the transition maybe already start to get out from early in 12th grade, you're already getting them out to get a chance. Just like how anybody go out to college and you could change your profession, you went out to college to be a doctor. And when you get there, you know that's not in your capacity, and you decide that's not what you want. I'm going to go and teach. Or vice versa. Same for the child. Clifford A. Joseph, number 18 on the ballot.
Good morning again, Franklin Johnson, number 4 on your ballot. Before I answer your question, I want to make sure I give some information. I did reach out to the Commissioner of Education, and she said that the reason they're having a problem with the service right now is not the service itself, but the transportation. They have a lot of older buses that are continuously breaking down, so those children are not being transported, accommodating very well with the bus service. That's what she said. I still don't have some more conversation with her. But I do agree with a couple of my colleagues. This transition shouldn't wait till they reach 11 and 12th grade. It must start a lot earlier, especially with children that have disability. One of the major problems with that is not so much the child, but the parent. Many times we shelter and protect our children so much, and a lot of these children are aggressive and ready to see the world, even though they might not be able to see. They're willing to feel the world, even though they might not be able to hear. So a lot of times parents might be holding back and not giving these children the opportunity that they need to go out and see the world and feel the world and see what it is about. And we have to give them those opportunities once the proper security and everything is in place for them. But we cannot continue holding them back. And then when they reach the 12th grade, now, what do? It's too late then. So we definitely have to start this from maybe age 12, 13 years old. Asking them what they want to do. Start finding ways to reach their goal and reach their training that is needed for what they ambition and their skill that they want to learn. They are not all the time, because their vision or hearing impaired, their hands are good, their minds are good. They can go through the process just like any other child, and sometimes even does better. So we definitely need to stop holding them back and give them the opportunity from very young, so that by the time they reach 12th grade, they'll know what direction they want to go, and that transition will be a lot more easier. Again, Franklin Johnson, number 4 on the ballot.
Thank you. on the line of what everybody has discussed, I think beyond just that transition should also, we haven't had much discussion about this today, is how do we support their assisted living and independent living as well. You know, sometimes these students may be ready to get out of the parents' home. The parents may be ready to get rid of them. You know, so how do we then transition them into having that independent living as well as assisted living quarters? So that is something else that I just wanted to add to the discussion here this morning.
Hubert Frederick, number 7 on the ballot. So financial literacy, which is something we talk about, the schools seem to not offer that on a consistent basis, but we know as adults, that's the first thing you have to deal with as an adult, how to manage your money. This should start, obviously, at a much younger age for students so that they can be prepared. What does it take to have good credit? You know, what's required? You know, what's a need? What's a want? You know, what does it take to qualify for a loan? The reason why it's important to start them young is that when they get to 12th grade, they understand exactly, they're prepared, they understand what it takes to make it out here, whether they go right into the workforce or they start their own businesses.
10 seconds.
The discipline to be financial literate requires you to practice. It takes a lot of practice to learn to be financially disciplined. Hubert Frederick, number 7 on the ballot.
Thank you. So the next series of questions have to do with employment. And I'll read the question. What type of local programs would you design to assist people with transitioning into the workforce, and how would you fund such sources? Mr. Johnson.
A lot of times, transition and making sure that the workforce is available, that's something that has to come with benefit. So many times we have to find ways of doing tax exemption and tax benefit to companies or corporations who are willing to take this chance for the training, the development of these individuals with disability. So it's going to take some more legislation, which there's a lot of laws on the books already, but still we need to do more for those individuals who have physical challenges to make sure that they are part of this community. When you look around, you find out there are more and more people, not just students, but elderly people who are, as you say, any one of us can be disabled in the snap of a finger. And as you look around, you're seeing this is happening more and more with either our health, the way we take care of ourselves, disabilities, comes from diabetic. You lose your sight from the diabetic, and now you fall in that line. And you could wake up tomorrow and find out that you was that easy to take care of yourself, also you're in that same group. But that number is increasing daily. Every year I take part with the White Cane Day in VIUCEDD. I donate to that, and I always try to make sure that the awareness of people that have visual disabilities out there and doing their part and making sure it's an awareness thing. But every time that I go there, I can see that there's someone new, someone different. So I can see this population growing more and more, and our legislations and our laws have to start adjusting to make sure we make a better way of life for them and give them that same opportunity that all of us have. Number 4, Franklin Johnson, on your ballot.
For Joseph, number 18 on the ballot, without question, it has to have incentives involved in small businesses or likewise, whether it be tax exemptions or whatever. But it needs to be a part of incentivizing businesses to, by giving them some kind of funding, at least for the training for the individuals, because like we all agree here today that some of the disabled will actually be a better performance on the job than even us who is able. So with that in mind, we got to make sure that we could get some legislation together to make sure that some funding is available to give companies, small business or large businesses, monies for training. That's very important. And I think the transition into the workplace, once trained, will be just fine. For Joseph, number 18 on the ballot.
question before I go to work. I noticed that. One of the things that we really need to understand is that people with disabilities can be grouped in a lot of different categories. For example, physical disability, mental disability, intellectual disability, sensory disability. So that means that a person who needs assistance with transition or work, we have to address the particular disability that they're dealing with. Sometimes the disability is one that an employer has an attitude towards. How do we get over that attitudinal barrier that person has to face? Sometimes it's an environmental barrier. The employer just doesn't have the workplace structure to assist that person. So I think it has to be tailored to each case of the need of the person with disability, and how do we assist that person in transitioning based on the barriers that person is going to face. Each individual student with disability needs to be addressed individually. We know that we have people with disabilities who are highly intellectual, but have a disability that has to be addressed differently. So my answer to that is it really comes down to a case by case, but more so changing the attitudes of employers in our community and people in our community to understand and assist people with whatever disability it is that needs to be addressed. Mary Shanes, number 20. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question, Honorable Francis, Junior number 8. So of course, incentivization, of course, is definitely necessary. We have legislation that allow for apprenticeship programs. Remote working, I think that is something that should be considered moving forward, that we have strong policies to support remote working, a lot of those things. Reclassification, where individuals may not be able to perform their original work, but there's an opportunity for them to be reclassified and be able to perform some additional work. Outside of that, when I think of disability, I'm often forced to think about individuals that may have had a catastrophic illness that have now deemed them disabled in some way, shape, or form. I think that those two have to be considered, as well as our elderly population that still have a little bit of fight in them, that will be willing to work. How do we then support those endeavors, those individuals that may be struggling with dementia and other illnesses that present some disability, impact and effect on them. So, when you think about this whole issue of disability, there's different IEP to identify what that person look like, but I think that it's very comprehensive, and we have to have a broad spectrum of ideas of how to be able to address this. And again, just being able to have these conversations over and over, I think that we could be able to develop the policy statements to support some of these endeavors. Well, Francis, number 8.
There you are, candidate. I think we start with compassion, right? I will speak as a business owner from my vantage point. We reached out to the Department of Education. We reached out to the BOC, Bureau of Corrections, and we reached out to the Department of Labor, and we said, we have this program available to teach metal fabrication to young people, young, old, whomever wants to learn how to make jewelry, and no one took us up on this. Maybe it's because it was me, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Because I walk the walk, right? I mean, when I was in the legislature, those things mattered to me. When I left the Senate, they still mattered. I saw myself as a business owner having even wider, broader ability to help. But then there were these impediments in place because of political, decisions people choose to make. I tell you this much, we were able to still do it at our facility. And we unfortunately do not have accessibility because it's an old building in downtown Christiansburg, and we are challenged. So I am sure that if monies were made available to businesses like ours to retrofit our facilities to allow for training to happen on the ground, and individuals with wheelchairs or other disabilities are able to receive the training there, I would be willing to say to you that almost every business will take advantage of it. Because we are a small community, we know who these individuals are, and we care. We can do this. We're not California. But government has to step up. The Department of Labor has to reach out. And when people reach out to them, they need to respond. You are a public servant. You get paid by tax dollars that we pay. Therefore, your responsibility is to do your job. And that includes delivering services to all segments of our community. I am Nellie O'Reilly. I am the writing candidate. Nellie.
How do you spell passion? Hubert Frederick, number 7 on the ballot. I appreciate the opportunity to be on this panel today to contribute to the discussion. This is a very important topic that we're dealing with today. Our community has to come together and figure out how we're going to deal with it. There are some local programs that are in place. How effective they are, I can't tell you. We have no measurement or performance standards to see whether or not they are worth the money that we spend on them. This is something I know if I was in the Senate, I would be working with my colleagues to make sure that the monies are spent based on programs that we know work. You have to know whether or not you're getting something out of the programs that we're putting together. So we've got all this, and we have internship opportunities, we've got vocational education programs, specialized training, workforce development, apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs. We don't know if they work because there's no measurement standards. What if you just hired everyone in there and they last a day? Is that an effective program? No. So we got some more work to do, and I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues. These issues are not going to be solved in one legislature or 2 or 3. It takes time. And once we get on a path where we plan for the success of these programs, then you'll start seeing the benefit for it. But in the meantime, as a taxpayer individual, you do the best you can do to prepare yourself, your children, for their future, and it starts with you, the parent. That's the bottom line. It always starts with the parent. Prepare your children, do not rely on the school system. Take whatever you can get from them, but you do what you have to do to prepare your student, your child for the future. Hubert Frederick, number 7 on the ballot. Thank you.
I want to push back a little bit. No, not in a negative way, but it is true that parents really, at the end of the day, have a huge responsibility. But that is why education is a public good. That is why the Department of Labor is a government agency which offers a public good. A public good is a good that is given to you as a resident in exchange for your taxes. And so we have to hold these agencies accountable as well. And businesses have to be able to be nimble. And I know you would agree with me that Gen Zs sometimes are not, they're difficult to work with. But we have to be able to give them the skills and the training that they need so that they can be incorporated in businesses. We old people can't keep making decisions for young people. I'm Nellie, the writing candidate.
Good day. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, participating, and responding to all of our questions. At this time, we have Senator Capehart, who would like to offer a few comments and remarks. Thank you.
Good morning or good day, everyone. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend the second panel because I have a bill in committee that I have to vet. This is to humanize the badge for police officers who died in the line of duty. So I'm in attendance every time there's a forum for VIUCEDD, and I didn't want to be absent, so I just wanted to say a few words. I am Diane Capehart, number 10 on the ballot. I've always been a strong advocate for people with disabilities. I've actually had the opportunity to work for WorkAble work opportunities, and these are organizations through the Department of Human Services, through vocational rehab, that actually would train individuals with disability and place them in jobs in the community. We no longer have these programs. They cut these programs out, and they were effective. And I'm going to say, even at Human Services, there was a day program for individuals with disabilities that could not be placed, but they were arts and crafts and things that kept them busy to stimulate them. These are the programs that we need to be able to reinstitute in our community. And another thing that I heard my colleagues say, and it is so true, that when I worked in work able and work opportunities, and I went to the employers in this community, telling them even about a tax incentive that you would receive hiring someone with a disability, the reception was not good. They would say, I don't want to hire them kind of people. And I'm like, this person can't hear probably in the right ear, but they can see, they can work well with their hands, why not? After that, I tell my family, don't ever support this business because they discriminate against elderly people, the people with disabilities. So I just want to say thank you for this opportunity, that I would continue working on your behalf to advocate on any legislation, creating legislation to improve the quality of life for people with disability, even that transition for those individuals that are finishing school and they have no place to go. We need to work as senators to look at these things. As I'm here today, I'm bringing back those memories and those programs, so I would work on your behalf. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Diane Key, part number 10.
Thank you. Okay, you can give two. Okay.
I would like to thank each of the candidates for coming and giving us such a rich and engaging conversation. I think, like some said, these are important and we need to be able to engage more often. And I'm going to have each candidate just give a wrap-up, 1 to 2 minutes, stating your name and your number and whatever last words you want to say.
Good afternoon again. Thank you very much for the VIUCEDD Voice That Count with this opportunity to be here and speak and lay my passion and my beliefs and what I've been doing even before becoming a senator. I've always been reaching out, working with independent living and the Lions with White Cane Day, and I've always pledged to them that rather I'm in this position or not, I will be a part of White Cane Day, assisting them, contributing to them. So this didn't just start with me looking out for the disabled. My office is open up to people with disability of all times. I've brought people in, assist them in any and every way that I can, and will continue to do that. I am Franklin Johnson, number 4 on your ballot, asking you for your vote and your support. Have a wonderful day, and again, thank you for this opportunity. God bless.
Good afternoon again. Clifford A. Joseph, number 18 on your ballot. I reach out as a landlord personally. If I have 10 apartments, at least I know at least 8 of them for sure. I got ramps, doors are 36 inches at the bathroom. So I do what I can do. I am a member of the Freedom Star Moravian Church. And every member that needs help to come into church on a Sunday or leave, I'm there to assist them. Either they want to walk the ground or they want to go down the step. I have the strength to help them go down the step because some of them really feel proud to know that they can still make it down the step. So, as part of my journey here to be elected here in the 36th legislature, I'm committed to serve every individual in the board. I ain't got a limitation to my commitment and my service that I want to bring to the legislature. Again, my name is Clifford A. Joseph, number 18 18 at the bottom.
Thank you. I want to thank you for inviting me today to this forum because I believe I learned more about your organization, but even more about the issues facing people with disabilities in this community. I had the opportunity during the break to talk to two individuals. And actually, in terms of age, one with a child that's 5 years old and a senior citizen in the community with different needs that have to be addressed. So they're vast, they're varied. We have to find the funds. One of the things that when a legislature passes a budget that it needs to recognize is that in passing that budget, the budget reflects the needs of its community. So we need to make sure that we prioritize a lot of the issues that were pointed out today. In terms of enforcement, which were some of the questions that were asked earlier, again, that rests with the executive branch, but as the legislature has oversight, we need to make sure that we contact those commissioners that deal with the respective areas that you pointed out. I am committed, I am compassionate, I am courageous. I bring my expertise, education, and experience to this position. I'm asking you to allow me, give me the privilege and honor to serve you again. Vote number 20, Mary C. James. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Again, good afternoon. My name is Nobel E. Francis Jr. I'm number 8 on the ballot. I always welcome these discussions because I have the opportunity to learn something new each and every time we have this discussion. And it's important that we continue to be compassionate in this community. We know each other, we have a small community. Hold the door open, assist someone maybe cross the street. We have a responsibility to make sure that, we're creating pathways to allow for individuals to be able to navigate walkways and roadways in a safe and prudent manner. And, continue to be the voice. Continue to be the voice of this community. Each and every one of us can make a difference. When you see something that's out of the ordinary, pick up the phone, make a phone call your representative, call government house, call the administrator, call whoever you need to call to make sure that something is being done to address this particular issue. Even at the airport, we work in providing funding to support them so that we don't have individuals that's loaded into the plane. For example, in the manner that they just put you on a lift and lift you up. We're building, creating jet bridges and those type of things, so we can, again, be compassionate to those individuals that may be disabled. I often say that we are paying it forward because none of us know what will happen to drive that issue. You get involved in an accident, you have a catastrophic illness today that leave you disabled and requires some assistance and support. Who feels it knows it. And we have to continue to look out for each other in this endeavor. We have an aging population as well. I'm always mindful of that, and we can see what happens. If we live long enough, we'll become limited in our ability to mobilize and do certain things. So let's do our part to make a difference. I'm Nobel E. Francis Jr. I pledge my support. I continue to support to work with my colleagues to make sure that we're doing our part from a legislative perspective. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
I'm Nelly O'Reilly, I'm your writing candidate. Government has to be the first to set a good example, right? And if you walk downtown Christiansted, and even Fredericksted, but for the most part Christiansted, the sidewalks are not accessible. The light fixtures that fell after Maria are still leaning and blocking the way for individuals who need to maneuver a wheelchair. So I want to encourage government to do the right thing and to set the right example. 1. 2, the Community Reinvestment Fund is a real thing. This is funded by Diageo and Rouge and Rum and all of that. And perhaps the members of this panel today might want to go back when they go to the legislature and consider maybe isolating some of that funding to help fund some of the initiatives we discussed here today. I am a writing candidate. I served 10 years in the legislature. If elected, I don't have to spend any time learning my way through, because I already know. I know what it takes to be an effective senator. I am unapologetically and unequivocally an advocate for St. Croix, make no excuses, have no desires to be governor, so I have no problem pointing out when St. Croix is not getting its fair share. So, if you want somebody who is not afraid, if you want somebody who knows how to go to work the first day, then that's me. I'm your writing candidate. And guess what? The fact that you have to write me in, that gives you more power. There is muscularity in your ability to write N-E-L-L-I-A.
Keyword Frederick number 7. I want to thank the organization for putting this forum together. It's good to have a lot of viewpoints. And that's what we get. A lot of views, a lot of things to learn. Definitely, I learned a lot. And when I go back, I'm going to look at ways that I could accommodate, again, more individuals with disability in my organization. Although the biggest impediment is the government. Again, they're not providing stable, reliable, or sustainable, reliable transportation for people with disabilities. So even if we offer a job, you gotta come to work on time. I can't tell you how many times sometimes you have to wait for a bus to show up before you could leave because the bus system is so poorly ran. So, you know, I'll keep working on it. It's not easy. For all the other business owners out there, I'm going to ask them to continue to work on this issue because it's not easy for both sides. We're trying to make money and provide a great service to our community with the challenges that our community has. And one is the government needs to do its part to help us too. It's okay when we pay our taxes, that's good, but the money goes into this funnel and then we never get anything out of it. We're just asking to do what you're supposed to do so we can provide more services for the community. Independent living is important, very important for the disabled community and for any community. I'm a caretaker of my mom. When I leave here, I have to go and get her some lunch. I understand how difficult this process is. It's not easy. So I'm very compassionate towards people with disability. And I pray that we can come together as a community to address these issues. Keyword Frederick number 7.
Thank everyone again. We're going to be breaking for lunch before the second session. Please feel free as you're leaving to take lunch. We have tuna, turkey with cheese, and veg. Okay, so if you need to take an extra lunch for your mom, take it out. At the second session at 1:30 for those of you who are staying for that, we're going to have the additional senators at that time. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.